Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth podcast. On today's show, I brought on a special guest, Aimee Laliberte. Aimee is the owner of My Virtual CFO, a mindset expert who believes everyone's path to success is rooted in their subconscious. 25 years ago, Aimee transferred from being a bankrupt young adult into a hardworking mother and highly profitable advisor for more than 75 6 to 7 figure business owners. Aimee, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm looking forward to today's topic. We work with a lot of business owners. We have a lot of business owners that listen into the show. And I think everyone's, on a different trajectory with their business. Some are just starting out. Some have been, in it for a while. Some are thinking about starting a business. But everyone's in that same bucket where they have to figure out the finances of their business and how to be as efficient, as optimal with them as possible. So definitely looking forward to today's topic.
Yes, absolutely.
So where does someone start? And I know it obviously depends on, where they are with their business, but how important is it for a business to get their finances in order?
Because of what I do professionally, I would say it's imperative. It's so important because if you're not in relationship with your money and if you're not in relationship with the finances and all of the things that have happened in the business with the financial lens of it, you're missing a key ingredient to driving and scaling in a sustainable, thoughtful way. And, just understanding the cash position and how you are spending your money, which in all essence is your energy on how you're growing your business and whether or not the choices that you're making from a financial lens are appropriate and are getting you towards your ultimate destination, your ultimate goal. If you don't have clarity around that, it's you're getting to a destination and you don't have your map, and it's just going to take you so much longer to get there. So what if we have the map? What if we have the financial system in place so that you're able to make really thoughtful decisions and intentional decisions to get to where you want to go?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I'm an enormous proponent of systems, whether that's in finance or pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. What are some of the systems that business owners should put in place or should have in place when it comes to their finances?
One of the things that I like to do, even before we get into here is the system, is really raising the awareness and understanding why you need a system. I think that that's the part that's always that, well, I'll just use an Excel spreadsheet and then I'll be fine. And what I invite you to do is if you are a business, whether you're thinking about it, you're just starting out, or if you're further along, if you are intentionally saying, I'm going to create the system that will grow with me, I am in this business for the long term, then you will start making decisions not from who you are today, but who you will become in the future. So in terms of a money system, baseline, the bookkeeping system is everything. Is being able to have a solid financial system using software there's accounting softwares like Xero, QuickBooks, any of those ones that you intentionally decide. If you are somebody who's going to be collecting money and you want to have an ease of payment system, picking a merchant provider that will be able to process credit card payments, something as basic as consciously deciding I'm starting a business, I'm separating my personal bank accounts with my business bank accounts. And I know that maybe to some of your listeners, that seems obvious, but there are a lot of people who have that commingling happening, but that's separating that and then just building that foundation from there. Because once you have the bookkeeping system in place, then we can start doing things if you want to implement a strategy like Profit First, we can implement that because we have the clarity of the foundation of the bookkeeping system that we then can take information from and decide. Let's say that you want to implement a marketing strategy, but you're not sure how you're going to be able to leverage that. Or what if your marketing strategy and the money that you're investing in that market, is it paying off? Are you getting a return on investment? The bookkeeping system is the foundation of everything else.
How do you preach that message to someone just starting out who really probably got into the business because they wanted to make money and they were good at whether it was a skill, a trade, or something like that, and that's all that's all they're thinking about is, how can I scratch and claw to build my business? Their thought is, okay, the finances, the books, they'll take care of themselves. I'm sure you see it. I definitely see it where it just spirals out of control from there if they don't set up those systems from the start.
Mm-hmm.
But so much of these interactions we have are emotional and psychological. How do you get someone to start, putting in that book?
I mean, what it boils down to is that when you're just starting out, chances are your sales are coming in, but you have more time at the beginning, in essence, right? Because you're starting out, you're telling people what you do and driving sales, doing consults and all of that. So you do have the time. Now, if you're finding that you're hitting the ground running because you've got, you're an in-demand person, you're highly networked, whatever the situation is, that you're finding yourself like, I know I need to deal with this financial lens of my business, and I know I need to make this a priority. I don't have the time. That's when you really need to start saying, I need to bring somebody in, even if it's not like a long-term commitment. I need to have somebody who can set the foundation for me from the financial side and who can teach me how to do this so that I can at least just have the system that they have created for me, and all I need to do is execute it and maintain it. So then really checking in and like, where do you fall in that, right? That would be step one. If you find yourself someone who just, for whatever reason, you're like, I'm just avoiding my numbers because I have that mindset piece of it. Again, the awareness, recognizing that that's why you're avoiding it, is going to be really helpful for you, because then maybe what you do need is to bring somebody on who can help you keep your money managed, but then also has that combination of that coaching skill set that can help you work on your mindset around money and really help shape and elevate your relationship with money, and doing that through coaching and through mindset work.
Yeah, and I've seen different levels of financials where, like you mentioned, it could be someone that comes in, sets up the books and teaches the person how to do it. Or maybe they set up the books and maybe they actually do it monthly, quarterly at certain periods of time, and they kind of spit back reports. But, what's the value of doing that? But plus the coaching aspect, that virtual CFO aspect. And then how does someone know if they're at what are those 3 levels, and maybe there are even more levels they are with their business, and what type of engagement they need with someone for helping with it?
Yeah. So I think really what it boils down to is this is the exercise that I always invite to. It's a framework that I call sustainable scaling. And if you are someone who is looking to scale, and it doesn't matter where you are starting out or whatever, this is an invitation to you to do at any point. Number one, what are the things that are working for you in terms of like, what are your thoughts on money? What are your thoughts on your business financials? What are your thoughts on scaling the business, and really starting to like write it all out on paper so you can start to see what your brain actually thinks, because we have all of this firing of thoughts that are happening. And so when we slow down and we look at that, then we can turn around and say, okay, like now we know where we're going. But then it allows you to take inventory and say, what are the changes that I want to make? I think so often there's this feeling that there's a rule of like, I need to be making this much money in order to get support for this area. And that's just not true. This is really about a recipe that is customized for you and for what you need, and really like, yourself the best, right? So if you know that you're going to avoid your finances, then you need accountability around that. So like that helps you elevate, I need support around this. Now I need to find the right person and someone who I want to pay for this value added that I'm going to get to my business, right? So then we move into that point. But so in terms of when you need a CFO, when you need this, when you need that, it's really based on the individual. But in my experience, what I have found is that when you are scaling from 0 to your first 6 figures, I think having a bookkeeping system and having somebody else set it up for you, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, is a great start. And then they teach you how to do it, you maintain it. And like something that I do in terms of this is I'll set things up for people, and then I will teach them how to run a CFO meeting by themselves so that they can really start to build that confidence and clarity around their finances. And then what I see happen is once they hit six figures, there's things that start to change. Like typically they're like the only person in the business. They might have a contractor in like the first six figures, but then they start thinking about, I want to start scaling. I want to do this faster. How do I do that so that I can get to this ultimate goal, whether it's $500,000, $1 million, whatever the goal is financially, how do I get there? So then there becomes different complexities with hiring. And maybe I don't want to do my bookkeeping anymore. And that sort of financial mile marker is where I start to see clients start to really evaluate how much they want to be involved in the day-to-day. They still want to be involved. It's just really deciding how they want their time allocated. And then finally, once they hit that $500,000 mark, that's when they start to really say, listen, I need the bookkeeping, the CFO, I need all of that outsourced, and I need somebody to help me do that. I find where the needle starts to turn back around is when I see companies at 5 million and above, where they're at the point where it makes more sense for them to bring it back in-house. But it's not really until that $5 million mark that they start to bring it back in-house, because again, they've got this rinse and repeat method. And my clients, they've worked with me for so long that I've been scaling with them the whole time. So I've helped them ascend into that 7-figure business, and that I know their business. I can help them with it. And then once they get to the point where they want to build out a whole formal finance department, that's when there's a pivot. But working with someone who understands the life cycle of a business and can meet you where you are and get you to where you want to be, like that's sort of like the key.
I think one way to frame it with business owners is putting your books together, the best use of their time or the most cost-effective use of their time, or is it building the business? And in most cases, it's building the business. So yeah, I could definitely see the value of, helping at those different levels, whether they're first, and it's probably something that even maybe the sales aren't there right away, but their time is probably better spent trying to get more sales rather than, worrying about putting the books together in the most efficient way. And the other thing you mentioned too is, setting it up and teaching them how to do it. Some of the tools that are out there have become a lot more user-friendly than they were in the past, where business owners were scared about doing it themselves and learning this new system. And, I think some of the tools out there have made it easier for once those systems are in place to set them up and to actually run them.
Yeah. I mean, before I started my business, I worked at major organizations building out like 50, 70, 80, $100 million strategies, right? To create these financial goals. And the system thing mattered. And what I always realized was that if we wanted to bring in a software, it was one of those things where we always saw, like in a sales thing, you always saw the end result, right? So you saw it when it was all beautiful and all that. But in terms of getting it from its like out of the box look to that end result, it takes somebody to help facilitate and guide that. And so I agree with you. While like bookkeeping software, the QuickBooks, the Xeros of the world are so amazing, the technology, it really helps if you are working with someone that understand all the shortcuts and can then turn around and say, okay, here's the system. This is all you need to do. If you want to continue to do it, like we're going to cut it time in half because we've optimized it for you. And so in terms of like building the system, yeah, that investment might be better used to having someone who can do it in less than half the time than it would be for you to like learn how to do all the ins and outs of the software. And that would go the same, I think, when it comes to when people want to do things like outsource digital advertising. Like I'm not an expert in Facebook ads. I know there's lots of people out there that do. So like, is my time better spent figuring out the magic of Facebook ads and digital marketing, or is it better spent doing that? So it's the same lens, just,
Yeah, systems aren't just limited to financials. You mentioned Profit First before. Can you give everyone a background on what Profit First is and what's involved in actually executing or implementing it?
Profit First is a book that was written by Mike Michalowicz, and it is essentially a cash flow management system that sits on top of your accounting software. So it doesn't replace it, it sits on top of it. The word I want everyone to take from this is constraint. And the reason why I say that is because what you do is in the simple implementation is you create bank accounts 5 of them to be specific. And what you do is you have one account that is specifically designated to take all of your money that comes in. So it's your income account. And then using a basic implementation twice a month, all the money that comes into that income account, you then send it through all the other 4 accounts, which are profit, operating expense, owner's pay, and it's tax. And so what you're doing is you're allocating the money based on percentages in order to make sure that you are maximizing profit. Now, before I go any further with like the explanation of anything, I want to make sure of like the standard income statement equation is sales minus expenses equals profit. In the land of profit first, what we are suggesting and offering for your consideration is that we take sales minus profit first equals expenses. Because if we take our profit first, we are guaranteeing ourselves profitability in our business from the very beginning. So many businesses get caught up with spending. And what they're ending up doing is they find that they have to scale themselves in revenue in order to pace themselves with the amount of money that they've invested on the expense side. They find themselves as owners, they're not paying themselves nearly as much of the energy that they're putting in because they have to keep feeding this cash monster in order to keep all the things running. So again, when we have constraint and we have intentionality, we're able to allocate the income and give it very specific jobs so that we have things like there's never a worry of like, oh my gosh, what's my tax bill going to be? Because we have a tax account that's going to have that savings for you. You're always going to have a paycheck as the owner because we put that money aside for you to be paid. You're always going to be profitable because we've taken your profit first. And then whatever's left over, your operating expense, that is the money that you use to create your business and to grow your business. Now, I may have explained that in the most simplest of ways. It is a very simple concept. But sticking to it is the hard part because there's temptation. You see something, as you scroll in the social media lands of like, I can scale your business to 7 figures and beyond just by my signature process, right? And like you find yourself again getting caught up in the energy of I need to hurry up and get there rather than creating the constraint over like I have a plan and I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to have the intentionality behind it. And so that's where when you work with someone like myself, who's a Profit First certified professional, we're able to help guide you through any of those temptations, any of those invitations that you want to pivot your business away from. And we help keep you on the path of maximum profitability. We help you pay down your debt, and we help you make sure that the personal goals that you have set, which is most likely the reason you got into this business to begin with, are honored first.
That makes sense. And I could see how a new business, if they adopt that profit first system, it seems like it's pretty straightforward to set up. But what happens when you have that business that's been there for a while? You look at the financials and you look and there's no profit, expenses are this monster that's out of control. How do you convert the business into the profit first system? Is it cold turkey? You just look and you say, nope, your profit is 0 right now. We want a profit of X. Figure out how to reduce those expenses, or is it something that you gradually work into?
I mean, if anything, if you think about it, I always use like weight loss as the biggest example. If you have 20 pounds to lose, you're not going to go from where you are now to 20 pounds like that, right? You can. We've seen the TV shows that will create that for you, but does it create the long-term effects of being in a relationship with your monies and having that constraint and really going through a filter for you to make decisions in a really intentional way? The answer is no. All the businesses that I've done profit first implementation from that are businesses that have been in existence, they most likely have debt. They most likely have their expenses are disproportionately too high for the level of business of revenue that they're creating. And so what we do is like, I do an analysis of that and we create a plan that sometimes will take 8 quarters, so 2 years to get into that. So we are not in a rush to get you to optimize profitability. We are looking at this as a long plan because we want this to stay with you forever. We want to change your habits. We can't change habits like that. I mean, we can, but again, what we're looking for is like long-term commitment and a relationship with your money. And so that's our process. So if I have a client who, let's say that the recommended operating expense percentage is 50% of their real revenue, And let's say they're at 75%. I'm not going to take them from 75 to 50. I'm not going to say, okay, you need to cut 25% of your expenses in the next 90 days. Like, I would not do that because it would hemorrhage the integrity of the business. What I would turn around and do is, like, we start with little things. We might say we have to do a reduction of 1 to 2% in this quarter. And what I have found is that the clients that I work with, they're really enthusiastic to get started. And they're really committed to the process at the beginning. So we get the early wins. It's really in quarters 4, 5, and 6 where there's a lot of that, like, well, they've experienced the results. They have the profit. They're paying down their debt. They have created all these things. So it's like, this is working. I don't need to do anything else. And that's where, again, it's like that next level. And how do we coach you into, like, this is a long-term commitment. We need to stay on the course, stay on the path, and stay committed to maximizing the profitability of your business using this methodology.
Is there a target percentage that someone should look at for profits, or is it based off of what type of business they have? Or how does someone kind of start that process and say, all right, this is how much we should start off targeting?
So there's a couple ways to answer that. In Profit First, we consider a recommended table for your real revenue. And if you noticed, I say real revenue because there is a difference between real revenue and your total revenue. And this is what I mean by that. With your total revenue, we can look at all the money that's coming in. So we can say all the things that are coming in. But then we have COGS, we have cost of goods sold, you have direct support, you have subs and contractors that you have to pay for the delivery of that service. That income came in and you already have committed a portion of that to go into direct support, right? So then when we minus that total revenue from that, we get our real revenue. And the reason why is there is a lot of culture, I think, in the business community of wanting to, there's certain communities that are like looking to create that 6-figure business. There's certain communities that are looking for that $500,000 and then the 7 figures and then beyond, right? That total revenue number, that's your vanity number. You can go brag to whoever that you have that. But for Profit First, we care about the real revenue, because if you are $1 million business, but let's say that we've got $500,000 that are going right out the door for support, like for the cost of goods sold number, your business for Profit First is $500,000 business. And so we direct your percentages based off of that size business. So it's not necessarily related to industry. It's really driven by what your real revenue number is. And then we have recommended maximum profit percentages for those real revenues.
All businesses are going to have variable revenue, right? The nature of a business.
Mm-hmm.
What if the revenue varies a lot? Are they able to implement the Profit First system, or would they better be off using something else?
All the questions that you're asking are like the reasons why you want to make sure that you're working with someone who's certified in the process. And the reason why you want to do that is because, again, if you have a business that has seasonality, and I don't mean like, it could very well be that you are someone who is busy in the summer and then you have nothing going on in the winter. Or it could very well be that based on like online communities, they have launch cycles. So like sometimes they have a lot of money coming in. So what we do is if there is somebody that, if there's a business model that has that seasonality component to it, we know that. And what we do is we just start to layer on a more advanced method of Profit First. So we have a vault account that's really going to sit there, and we're going to put that money aside. That is going to make sure that once we have an understanding of like, what is the enough number for your business to keep everything moving the way that it is? What is that number? We want to make sure that we have that number created, and then we want to build that vault account towards that, so that when we have that season, so you have high revenue, no revenue, it's not a problem, because we've already anticipated that's going to happen in the process and in the implementation.
So you're almost building up like this buffer where if there is like that seasonality that comes into place, the business isn't crippled. It can actually go and pull and then replenish in that time period that there is an overflow or surplus.
Yes, it's required, because that's, I think, what often gets businesses that have that type of a business model into trouble, is that they have this high revenue producing month. So they spend all the money, do all the things. And then the next month, the bills are still there and they have no money because they have like, a low month. So we really try to stabilize that by making sure that we have consistent cash flow. And we do that using Profit First.
You mentioned earlier about helping a business reduce expenses and, not going from, 75% to 50% in a month. But how best can someone or a business owner identify leaks that they may have in their business in terms of money going out or expenses or spending?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really about, like, again, if we go back to what we started with the conversation was the system, right? So if we have the bookkeeping system in place, we can run financial reports and we can see like, okay, this much money is going out for this particular thing. And we really start to examine, are there things that we no longer need? So like those are the early easy wins. So what I find a number of companies have, regardless of industry, is they have subscribed to different software tools that they don't even use. So like these are like the quick wins that they can have. And that really helps them take ownership and invest into the process, right? But then what happens is sometimes for some businesses, they might have the wrong employee. If someone who's a revenue generating position isn't producing at the rate of it, it really becomes obvious when you're implementing profit first, because you really need to be in relationship with the money and make those course corrections. So that's where you start to really get into the nitty gritty of the books in order to identify where the leaks are. And then you start problem solving in order to fix those, to repair those leaks, if you will, so that everything is solid.
So is it basically going at both a transaction level, looking at each transaction and basically saying check, yes, needed, X, no, not needed, and then also at a higher maybe categorical level to look at the trends and see, wow, I'm spending this much money on this and I didn't even realize it, and I probably don't need to spend that much on it.
Yes, all of that. And when you're making decisions, not making decisions from an energy and a feeling of, I got to get this done because it's a problem, in that like rush and hurry energy. It's really like the slowing down. I am the CEO. I'm the visionary of this business, and I'm going to make decisions that are in the spirit of all of the values and the goals and the integrity and the soul of the business, to really then start to make the decisions from there. Not as I have to hurry up and get this done because I have to fix this problem. It's like, yes, we are addressing all of the things. We're going to make conscious decisions, but we're going to do so from a place of like, this is in alignment with what we're looking to create in our business, in our lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I know you started off with profit first, saying it's a simple, or at least it sounds simple, and obviously nothing is simple, and getting your books in order, depending upon how off they are, could be challenging. Even working with a coach, what do you see as like some of the holdups or some of the reasons why people, even if they know this is what they should be doing, that they're not able to execute that roadmap to get to where they need to go?
I mean, I really think it comes down to mindset and limiting beliefs and self-sabotage. So, I mean, you can turn around and look at all the numbers and see all the results and then just think that like, why can't I take action? And it's really slowing down and asking yourself, why can't you do that? And again, having that thought, like I said to you before, like really saying like profit first, implementation, like, why can't I do this? And like the thoughts that come down and like, what is your resistance behind it? They're all going to come up. I've tried to do this before. Nothing ever works. I've done this. And then what you see is these patterns of thoughts that you have. And so when you have thoughts of, profit first will never work for me because I never stick to anything, or I'm really bad at money, so this will never work. When you have thoughts like that, that's not going to create a result of maximum profitability. Any goal is as good as done. That's not going to create that, because that is just like not the programming and the thoughts that you want to have in order to create those results. So working with someone to help you understand that. And if you don't, and you're doing like this all on your own, really just looking at your thoughts and how they all are playing out for you allows you, even if it's just the awareness piece of it, that's the first step towards the transformation, is just being honest with yourself and knowing that these numbers, math, profit first, all of it, the financials are all neutral. It's your really thoughts that are keeping you or propelling you to make, like, to have the action to create the result that you desire.
Yeah, it goes to show how much mindset comes into it, because you look at this system and it looks pretty simple, but I'm sure it is challenging to do that. And having a coach, having someone you work with to one, hold you accountable, to work with some of those limiting beliefs, that some of those mindset issues that come up, can definitely benefiting someone to do it. So we're just about out of time. Aimee, thank you for being on the show. You gave a lot of great information and tips on how business owners can get their finances in order. How best can someone reach out to you if they want to find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. If you come visit my website at myvirtualcfo.co, you can see all the things that I have going on there and also learn more about any offerings or classes that I will be hosting and that you're welcome to join.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll link to all that in the show notes. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.